At this point, every single one of us is moving through generational trauma. Everything that we're experiencing is like a backstory to how our family has lived in the past over and over and over again. Like in my family, it was like the women were silenced to avoid conflict. It was shit that was brushed under the carpet and ignored. Like shit would pop off, and tomorrow we pretend like it never even fucking happened, right? These things follow us in our relationships. They follow us in our the actions that we take, the things that we're deciding to dwell on, the things that we're thinking about, the things that we desire. This all has to do with generational trauma. So, for example, I was abandoned by my mother and neglected, and when she left holding my brother's hand and left me to my grandparents, right? Not explaining anything. There was a lack of communication. Therefore, in my relationships, I was attracting women who eventually, at some point, would leave me by myself, and I was suffering codependency. So while they were gone, all my energy was like honed on them and I was neglecting my own self, right? I feared rejection, therefore I stayed for all the wrong fucking reasons. I got with women who could not explain or communicate with me things that they had done wrong. So I was always left in the dark. These things are carried on generation after generation after generation. But none of this means that we have to live with these stigmas, right? None of these things are true. They're just patterns that we're accustomed to. And our brain only knows pattern. And if you don't know that, then the only patterns that you know are the ones that you were taught. At this point, now that you know, teach your brain different patterns, affirmations. They seem cheesy as fuck, but let me tell you what you're doing is reminding your brain, like, these are the patterns that I prefer rather than the ones that drag me down. Because when you start choosing your thoughts, you start choosing your actions that you prefer to live through, then you're creating this algorithm and telling the divine, yo, this is what I actually desire and this is what I actually permit. And when you're like driven by these like negative thoughts, then you say, Spirit guys, remove these thoughts. They do not serve me. And I'm telling you, it will happen. The thing is, when it doesn't, then the next question that you should ask is, what are you trying to show me, divine, by presenting these memories? Right? But you have to use your discernment on what you're holding on to and what you're actually experiencing. In this process, you must teach yourself how to release resentment, regret, shame, guilt, or any of these things that were built in the process of being raised, right? That cause negative impact. Understanding that all these experiences that you had when you were younger with whoever had involvement with your upbringing was a generational curse, a really heavy belief system that was carried on for years and years and years. And use this emotional intelligence to say, hey, you know what? I understand that my family went through this, but I'm no longer carrying this on. I choose to move forward. I choose to make better decisions. I choose to love myself. I refuse to believe that this stigma is true that brings me down. I refuse to believe that I'm alone and unwanted or unlovable, right? You have to help yourself remember who you are versus how others made you feel. And this is you pulling yourself out of these generational cycles of a belief system that's just so motherfucking untrue. Because let me tell you, when you start enlightening yourself and you start honing all this energy in on you, then everything becomes height. Your memory comes back. Clarity hits you like no fucking other. But this is something that you have to maintain. This is a life commitment to love yourself. Your ultimate job is to take responsibility of yourself, taking accountability of the choices that you're making, the people that you keep in, the patterns that you're holding on to, the habits that you're investing in. All these things make a difference, because if you're continuously following the same pattern over and over and over again, you're not going to get a different result. You're going to get the results that your entire generation before you has been experiencing. Just start actively changing shit.